Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night, depending on when you're listening to this podcast. Hello there, I'm Ross Hoare, this is Idiotsplaining, and this is officially the end of Season 1. Now, it's not going to be a traditional end of Season 1 thing because I didn't have enough time to make the Christmas episode. Of course, we have had a Christmas episode with the Advent Calendar episode that we had a couple of weeks ago, but it's been so busy going over the Christmas period. If you don't know, basically, I handle a radio station in Folkestone called Radio Folkestone, weirdly enough, even though I do actually say Radio Folkestone pretty much at the end of every episode. But yeah, it's been going crazy with getting stuff ready for Christmas and all the other bits, and I'm now officially on a break from from the radio station for the rest of the year, but I have had to pretty much put everything aside just to get all of that stuff done, and unfortunately the podcast was that thing. I never wanted it to be that thing to sort of set aside, but it had to be done. I didn't want to rush the final episode, so maybe next year we'll have a Christmas episode, like an official Christmas episode, but yeah, I didn't want to rush it. And that's kind of the main thing that I wanted to sort of say in this podcast, is that I don't like rushing this podcast. I never do. Sometimes I do. I'm just going to put that out there. Sometimes I do, like this very episode. I'm actually recording this at 4 minutes past 9 on the day that the podcast is supposed to go out. And I've got to get ready in like a little bit. I've got to get ready in about 30 minutes or so to leave the house. So yeah, it's that thing of completely rushing to get things done. But anyway, it's that my brain. It's my brain. I'm gonna say it now. It's my brain. So, even though this isn't a traditional sort of end of season thing, I wanted to sort of reflect on exactly what has been done and kind of what I want to do in 2025. I mean, the dream, of course, is doing radio all the time and doing it for a living. Who knows if that will ever happen? I didn't want to make this episode about like a sad episode about, oh, I can't get a job in radio. But I mean, can you hear it in my voice that I'm fed up? No, I'm not fed up at all. It's radio, and getting a job in radio is always a difficult thing, and I understand that. I understood that as soon as I started sort of studying it in university and things like that. But doing the radio stuff for Radio Folkestone and also doing this podcast has really sort of kicked into gear that I really love working with audio. Like, I did have a little bit of a thought in my brain about leaving the entire industry and just kind of focusing on trying to get a career that actually, you know, people want me. I'm not saying that radio doesn't want me. I'm just saying, like, something stable, you know what I mean? Because the last time I had a job in the radio industry was working for Academy FM, and I got let go or made redundant because of various background stuff. And I mean, it wasn't the first time I was out of a job. The last time I was out of a job was actually COVID, which was a lot of people. But the employment rate recently is not good. Or the unemployment rate, or the employment rate, one of the two. It's not great. You know what? I might do an Idiotsplaining episode on that for the next series. Who really knows? But this podcast really has been a dream come true, I think, in terms of kind of what I wanted to do in the past. Because I've always wanted to make a podcast in the past, but I've never really sort of thought about what it was going to be. I did make a podcast during university. I don't think I've ever said you this story or told you this story. But I did make a podcast in university. It was one of our sort of last projects that we had to do. And the podcast that I made was called The World We Live In. And it was a sketch podcast, like a sketch comedy one, about various things and about, you know, the world we live in. And it was looking at pretty much every different city that there was. So the first episode was obviously looking at Canterbury because that made sense. But then, you know, next episodes would be looking at Cambridge or Oxford or any of those other cities. And, you know, it would be a podcast that would last for quite a while because there's quite a few cities. But then I didn't really know. I sort of had writer's block during that, and that was just for university. But looking back on it, I do wish I did more of that. It was so basically who was in the podcast was me as like a producer, and then the narrator of the podcast, or the star of the podcast, was actually one of the lecturers, Brian, I think. And my friends at the time did all of the voices for the sketch acting. So we had like a nightclub sketch, we had kids in the park sketch kind of thing. And yeah, that's kind of where my love for podcasting sort of started, I think. But also listening to podcasts. I love listening to podcasts. It's probably the only other thing I listen to. Like literally, it's either podcasts, my Spotify, or the Global Player app. That's pretty much it. Radio X usually, or Radio X Classic Rock. They are my go-tos if I want to listen to the radio. Yes, I don't listen to my own radio station. Probably because I'm involved with it every day of my life. But yeah, that's kind of where it is. And I think I've already told you the story of how this podcast came to be. In terms of the name, anyway. The idea, I can't really remember the idea. I think it was actually from The World We Live In podcast. I think it was kind of a spin on that. But then I just wanted to kind of make a PG-rated podcast that was essentially kind of explaining various things. And I think a big influence on this podcast is the character Philomena Kunk. If you don't know, definitely have a look at those series on BBC iPlayer. It'll be Kunk on, and then whatever it is. So it'll be history. It could be history. It could be various other things. But that character's done a lot. I can't remember her name now. I really wish I could remember her name. I'm gonna very quickly see. I'm not gonna edit any of this out. Philomena. Why did she have to pick a really hard first name? Yes, okay. Philomena Kunk. Yep, it's actually on Netflix. Didn't realise this. So I'm going to put that, and then Diane Morgan. That's the one. I knew. What in my brain? I just thought, yeah, I knew what this is. Yeah, Diane Morgan. She's amazing, and this series kind of does a spin on that. But also, it's my own brain as well. I will say it goes on my own brain. But yeah, it's been a series. I will say it's been a series, and I think there's definitely a few things that I'm taking away from this series that I'm going to make better in series 2. For example, probably getting things ready a little bit earlier. Some of these episodes have been very last minute, and I don't think I'll ever do that again. So hopefully I'll have a few months to sort of get things properly ready. But yeah. And I hope you've enjoyed the series. I really do. I hope you've enjoyed every episode. I literally, every single time I make an episode or people talk about my podcast, they've really enjoyed it and they really liked it. And it does make me want to do more. It makes me really want to do more. So, if you have any responses or any comments, anything you want, do let me know. You can check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Rosshoare, ROSSHOARE. Also, you can find me at rosshoare.com. That's my website. and suggest what we should do in season 2. I've still got some ideas from this season that I haven't done yet, so we'll be going over those very soon. And maybe we'll get some special guests in. Who knows? Maybe we'll get some people in to talk about these various subjects and do something with them. Who knows? If anyone's up for it, if anyone's interested, then let me know. But yeah, this was meant to be just a very quick episode. I've realised that it's now 10 minutes. So, very quickly, massive thank you for listening to Series 1. We will be back with Season 2 with a few specials at the beginning of the year, and then we'll be back with an official series later on next year. Have a fantastic Christmas, everybody. Have a wonderful New Year, and I will see you in 2025.